In 1970, legendary Australian rustic rockers Axiom released their first of two albums, Fool's Gold, and from it, the track Ford's Bridge. Okay, and that is Glenn Shorrock there on vocals from formerly of the Twilights, popular Aussie beat combo of the 60s, and he would later go on to global fame as the frontman of the Little River Band. And you know what a Ford crossing is? It's that crossing over a shallow part of a stream that could either be man-made or natural, and there's a lot of them. I don't know about Australia, but there's a lot of them in New Zealand. They're quite common. Yeah, and I would imagine there were a lot more of them in like old America, and a lot of this band's lyrical references are, I guess, kind of Old West inspired. Them being one of the first international bands from overseas to have been heavily influenced by the band. And the lyrics so far, let's see. Mary Ann Turnbull, she lived by the creek. I fell in love with her before she had a chance to speak about the things that I'd confide her mind. If I wanted her advances, then I'd have to take my chances in the line. So he was just kind of in love with her at first sight before she had really talked back to him, and he was already... his mind was already loaded with where he wanted things to go between the two of them. Yeah. Things that occupied her mind. If I wanted her advances, then I'd have to take my chances in the line. Nathan Wilson's boy came to town. I love the way it just swells up with those strings right there. He'd been away to war, and folks had thought he'd come around to court that fair young Mary Ann. And they were right, he came and asked her poor old father for her hand. Okay, this may be a little bit rough because it's sourced from vinyl. I'm just using the same copy I've had for the last 15 years. Maybe I should get an upgrade. But anyway, yeah, where are the lyrics going here? Nathan Wilson's boy came to town. A lot of like names in these songs. He'd been away to war, and folks had thought he'd come around to court that fair young Mary Ann, and they were right, he had. So two different men are in love with this Mary Ann, or it's switched point of view. At first it was spoken from first... Anyway, and they were right, he had. He came and asked her poor old father for her hand. We could make Ford's Bridge by morning. I could see all the things I know. Okay, I guess the songs on this album are credited to, it says Leeds. I thought the main songwriter for the band was Brian Cadd, the pianist, who subsequently launched a solo career after the two Axiom albums.
I ain't gonna make it by myself. Septimus O'Reilly, he scowled from the bench, slowly spoke the words that gave my heart a final wrench.
Oh god, that melody is so beautiful. Okay, midway through the recording of the LP, which was released under the title Fool's Gold, drummer Don Lebler of the Avengers okay. Axiom left Australia for the UK in April 1970 after signing a publishing deal from Leeds Music, with the local music press reporting that they had received a record deal offer. A lot of information about the band. Yeah, who, oh my god, here, just a moment here. Okay, all the songs on this album are co-written between bassist Don Mudie and pianist Brian Cadd. Yeah, or pianist organist Brian Cadd, yeah, and published by, very confusing how the labels list the credits.
Tomorrow, boy, you'll hang until you're dead. We're killing Mary Ann and her handsome lover, man. You'll lose your head.
Okay, where are the lyrics going now? Let's see. We could make Ford's Bridge by morning. I could see all the things I know. Everybody here ought to go. I ain't gonna make it by myself. Septimus O'Reilly, he scowled from the bench and slowly spoke the words that gave my heart a final wrench. He said, tomorrow, boy, you'll hang until you're dead for killing Mary Ann and her handsome lover man. You'll lose your... Okay. Wow, something's really unfolded here. In the first verse, we learn that the narrator is in love with Mary Ann, but he doesn't even know her, hasn't even approached her. He just has all these fantasies about where he'd like life to take the two of them, you know. It turns out she has a suitor who's returning from the war, and is about to marry her, is about to ask for, in the traditional way, go through her father and ask for the girl's hand in marriage. That third part, we could make it Ford's Bridge, is pretty vague. And then in the fourth, we learn through a third character that the narrator, I guess, murdered the two lovers, you know, out of jealousy, you know.
We could make Ford's Bridge by morning.
Like everything's built like on like descending. They'll land in a key and then they'll just descend, kind of like these falling root notes to the next dun 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 dun, like that.
I ain't gonna make it by myself.
Kind of those Baroque pop, Bee Gees-esque arrangements that were quite. Oh, some of the acts in Australia, like Tintin, were using them around this time.
We could make Ford's Bridge by morning.
The swelling up of the strings that over those key changes, yeah. There's that one choice line in the song, I ain't gonna make it by myself. That refrain is really starting to stand out. It's like you could, I guess, read that in many different ways. We could make Ford's Bridge by morning. I could see all the things I know. Everybody here ought to go. I ain't gonna make it by myself. Yeah, that just repeats and repeats. Yeah.
I could see all the things I know. Everybody here ought to go. I ain't gonna make it by myself. No.
Okay, hear that kind of rootsy guitar right there. Bit of twang to it.
I ain't gonna make it by myself. No, I ain't gonna make it by myself.
Ended on the major seventh right there. Hear that? It landed on C, dun, but those strings, those fading notes of the strings, it was on B. Yeah, and let's see, guitar on that played by Chris Stockley, And let's see. I guess I don't know if every single member went on to something, but Brian Cadd had been in the group, and yeah, so some like Aussie pop bands of the '60s, and then let's see, Chris Stockley at he later went on to the Dingoes. And I wonder if he was on their 70s. Yeah, he was on their 70s albums. Yeah, the Dingoes had one really good song. Yeah. And what was it? Was it? It was a song they recorded like 2 or 3 different times. Yeah. Anyway, let's see. Let's hear one more track from the Fool's Gold album. Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow.
No need to look away.
Brisk, kind of poppy, upbeat, piano thumping number.
No need to look away. If yesterday came again, you'd probably do the same.
Being kind of like a '65 era Beatles feel to this.
Suddenly gone, no need to run away. No need to run away. No reason to follow your shade.
Or more accurately, perhaps the Hollies.
You'll probably go round again. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Searching for an end to a sorrow. See it light ahead, but you can't hear it anymore. You've gone away.
Great post-chorus refrain right there with the harmonies converging over those like descending notes, like once again like landing on keys and then kind of like slowly dropping, doing these chromatic drops of the root note to like step down to the next chord. Little kind of twangy guitar, kind of. You got that really thick sound. It's coming out of like both speakers, and then there's that little twang kind of wiggling out of one.
Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Searching for an end to a sorrow. See it right there, but you can't hear it anymore. You've gone away. Yesterday's gone, no need to look away.
The Twilights did quite a few songs in this vein. And they also recorded one of the first ever concept albums. Yeah, Once Upon a Twilight, 1968. The mastermind behind it being guitar-songwriter Terry Britton, who, after that band split up, he relocated to the UK and became a backing player for Cliff Richard. And in the 80s, formed a partnership with one of the guys from Gallagher and Lyle. And I can't remember which one, though. And wrote What's Love Got to Do With It for Tina Turner and Beyond Thunderdome. Yeah, her 2 big mid-80s hits. Yeah. And and he was the main writer behind Cliff Richard's. He wrote Devil Woman for Cliff Richard and the bulk of 1979's Rock and Roll Juvenile album.
No need to look away. If yesterday came again, you'd probably do the same. Suddenly gone, no need to run away. No need to run away.
You gotta appreciate the slight time delay that Australia had with like the Northern Hemisphere, particularly England at the time. Like this kind of like poppy, slightly kind of Motown-ish beat sound just wouldn't have been done in 1970 in the UK. Like in 1968, yeah, it's a possibility. By late 1969, because I swear you can really trace it down almost like say every 6 months there was like a distinct kind of cleansing process going on in the UK during the late 60s, and Yeah, nothing. There's not a single act I can think of from the UK, and I've heard like about 200 albums from the UK from that year alone, that I can think of that were this tied to like the 1965-66 era sound-wise as this.
No reason to follow your shame. You'll probably go round again.
This could almost have a tambourine, you know, like that mid-60s tambourine, you know.
It's the day of tomorrow. Searching for an end to a sorrow. See out the door, but you can't hear it anymore. You've gone away. Oh,
I can't figure out what's my favorite part of the song. Is it the chorus itself, or is that after chorus, that na 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 na, and where the strings kind of get sort of like
like. The day of tomorrow. Searching for an end to a sorrow. See it out the door, but you can't hear it anymore. You've gone away. Yesterday's the day and tomorrow. Searching for an end to a sorrow.
When I was younger, I may have been brave enough to have done like the high harmony, that na 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 na. Yeah. One of them doing like thirds over the root notes that Glenn Shorrock is singing.
See it out the door, but you can't hear it anymore. You've gone away.
Actually, this is kind of a little bit like the Kinks. The Kinks did some things that were kind of like rustic, because it's also got like just a tad bit of, well, it's got, I wouldn't say music hall, but it kind of going in that direction with the piano thump and all that, and the angular, spiky melodies that we're hearing. Yeah, that was Axiom with Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow from the 1970 release Fool's Gold, and before that Ford's Bridge. Yeah, Axiom, a very important link in the development of Australian classic rock. Yeah, a spin-off of the Twilights, one of the most important Aussie beat bands of the 60s, and a precursor to the Little River Band, one of two main precursors to the Little River Band. And stylistically, a lot of this band's elements, the rustic pop elements, would be expanded on in the Little River Band. In the meantime, though, Glenn Shorrock would do a one-album stint with the multinational project Esperanto, a Belgian-based like multinational act that were kind of in the flamenco art rock territory, similar to the band Carmen. Yeah. Meanwhile, the other major precursor to the Little River Band I did a segment on a couple of months ago, that being Mississippi, the band that had B. Birtles and I think Graham Gobble. That was the band that had some that formed from the ashes of Zoot. Yeah. Zoot. Band that had like B. Birtles and Rick Springfield in it before he went stateside and tried to conquer Hollywood and all that. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, the very complex, convoluted story of Aussie rock history and all the people that went on, and all these guys that were around since like the mid-60s beat boom, all like inspired by the initial flush of Beatlemania. And some of them not really breaking big in the Northern Hemisphere until like the dawn of the 80s. Yeah, I'm thinking like Steve Kipner, via Physical and Chicago, Hard Habit to Break. I'm thinking like Terry Britton, who I talked about, Alan Tarney, Trevor Spencer from the James Taylor Move, a psychedelic band, nothing to do with the American James Taylor. Yeah, and the guys in this band, yeah, Glenn Shorrock, of course, the Little River Band would start making stateside headway around 1977 with Diamantina Cocktail, and then breaking really big, I guess, with Sleeper Catcher and First Under the Wire, 78, 79, thereabouts, yeah. And so success would be a long time coming for these guys, but it eventually would come, and deservingly so. Yeah. For more Rubies and Sapphires from the Axiom album and the other Aussie acts that I've talked about, see the directory of albums by Australian artists linked in the description below. Like and subscribe, follow me on social media, share the video, and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about the two tracks we just heard. The lyrics, the story, the plot, the melodies, the harmonies, the composition, yeah. And just the classic pop charm of it all, yeah. And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear-traveled trimaximalist, signing off.